So I've been watching plenty of YouTube videos from other channels about the culture war about the climate change. And let me tell you, it's just absolutely insane. Now, I'm not very good with names, so forgive me, but I don't know where to really begin. But with a lot of these videos I've been seeing lately, it's like these kids, these anywhere from college students to even middle schoolers and probably some elementary schoolers in there too, they are so convinced, so just on board that if we don't stop eating cows, if we don't stop using combustion engines, if we don't stop using airplanes, if we don't stop using coal and other fossil fuels, that we're gonna die. We're just gonna die. That's it. It's the end game. We're fucked. We gotta stop all this stuff, and we need a Green New Deal and all this other stuff. And this is probably why the dating world is so hard for young conservative men nowadays, because it seems like I'm sorry, but it seems like a lot of young women, they're just absolutely loony. Anyway, so I'm gonna start with probably the biggest. That little girl from Sweden or the little girl from Sweden at the UN like climate change talk about, what was it, Asperger's and Class A autism. Now, before I begin, I gotta make clear, I'm not attacking the little girl directly. All right, I'm for those who want to know, my brother has autism, so I can sympathize with autistic people because it's hard. It's hard growing up with autism, and it is hard growing with someone with autism. I mean, me and my brother, we're not that far apart when it comes to years, so it's I've seen the worst and the best and the worst out of them. But anyway, when this little girl came on and was talking about, how dare we, how dare we ruined her childhood and we ruined her future. No, we didn't do this. I'm putting full blame on the parents on that, because the parents clearly sat there and just filled her head with all this stuff saying, like, yeah, you know what? It's all these dirty conservatives and power companies, they ruined your childhood, sweetie. They ruined your future because they're destroying the world and they just don't care. It's bullshit. Now, for those who say, she's such well-spoken, she's such a great individual, look, people, apparently her father is a director, I believe, or some kind of form of a writer, and her grandfather, I believe, was a choreographer for a movie company, I believe. It's somewhere around those lines. So, that's two people in her life who know how to write and know how to act. So, clearly she got good scripting. I mean, that was good scripting. It's just, the thing is, I'm sure we've all seen this picture by now, where Donald Trump is getting up and leaving, and you can see the little girl just kind of staring him down. That is a look of pure fucking hatred, pure fucking anger. And, most little kids I've seen around that age, that's not a look that I really see them have. Like my sisters, they're around 10-ish. I'm not going to give exact ages, but, I've never seen them do that. I've seen them have displeasured looks, but nothing like that. Now, you could say, well, she has Asperger's and autism, stuff like that, but yeah, you can see in her eyes that she was convinced, like, absolutely convinced that Donald Trump is a bad guy. He needs to be brought down, and he is the reason that there's so much inequality in the world, and racism and sexism, and he's the reason that the world is going to be destroyed. People don't learn that type of stuff on their own. Well, I mean, they can, but most young people, they're taught that stuff. They reflect what their parents teach them. That's why I'm saying, like, if anyone's ruined her childhood, it's her parents. And her parents are clearly the ones sitting there telling her, it's like Donald Trump's the bad guy. We got to bring people like him down because, nationalism is bad and we got to have an open border society. It's the only way to save the world. If you haven't seen my Labor Party video, Carl Benjamin and other channels like Computing Forever and even No Bullshit, they are correct. The left believes that the only way to save this world outside the climate hysteria is we got to take everyone from the third world and bring them into the first world, which honestly, that's probably going to cause more climate change, if we're being honest. Now, I will link a few videos that I found that kind of talk about this pretty good. Go check them out because, hey, they did all the hard work, so I don't have to. No, in all honesty, guys, they do good work, and it's just, with me, I'm literally sitting here recording videos on my phone. I'm not high speed yet. Hopefully, maybe in a couple months, I will, but for now, that's what I got. Anyway, you see a lot of these young kids, like late teens, college, they believe this. They absolutely believe this, Like, they believe that if a Green New Deal is not, like, in the works, it doesn't happen, that the world's just going to be fucked. Despite the fact that Sargo Acad, he posted a video and he went through, like, we are supposed to be frozen by now. Like, we are supposed to be in an ice age because of carbon emissions. That didn't happen. Well, all the polar ices are supposed to be melting and destroyed by now. That didn't happen. Now that one, I will say, the northern pole, apparently ice is shrinking, but at the same time, apparently the Antarctic, their ice is actually increasing, so it's kind of curious when you hear stuff like that. It's just like, why aren't they talking about this in the news? Well, because it goes against their narrative, right? It's just, you see these kids talking about this, and you see these kids, like, having climate anxiety, and, oh my lord, one of these videos, this girl immediately came out, she was like, my pronouns are he, she, her, and I'm just like, the cringe. The freaking cringe. Whew. Listen. Is climate change real? Absolutely. It is. This planet is old, and it has came through and gone through many different cycles, even before humanity. The Earth is going to do what it's been doing for millions of years. That's just the reality. One of humanity's biggest flaws is the fact that we think we can control everything, when the reality is, we can't. Tons of species have come and gone on this planet, and reality is humans are no different. There may be a time where, even if we cut carbon emissions down to zero, factory-wise, like energy production-wise, but yet if the climate still changes and, say, like, the apocalypse does happen and sea levels rise, I mean, what are we going to do then? It's like, well, we did everything we said we can do. Nothing changed, so we're fucked. I think the left-wing government knows that they've taken this stuff too far by now, because when you're looking at some of the reactions of some of the Democratic presidents coming in, you can kind of see it low-key in their face, like, oh shit, this stuff is starting to get a little out of hand now. But they know they also can't turn back on it because it'll make them look hypocritical, even though they look hypocritical as it is anyway. This climate change, the reality of it, it's not about the climate at all. When you look at the Green New Deal and what all it had inside of it, and what Paris Climate Accord even had inside of it, they show you what they want on the surface, but when you get down to the dark underbelly, it's all about wealth distribution. That's all it is, because in the Green New Deal, if you remember, it had phrases in there talking about, atop of getting rid of airplanes and cow farts, we are also gonna give black communities more money for taxes, reparations, stuff like that. The Paris Climate Accord, it focused on Yeah, so we're going to give all this money to these developing nations to increase their carbon emission intake so they could advance quicker, and we're going to cut back everything else. But here's the reality of that thing. Yeah, this was in the Paris Climate Accord. Their idea was that they're going to fund all this money to these worlds so that they can double their carbon emissions so they could advance 10 times more quicker. But what happens if they got to a point where they're like, okay, you got where you needed to be. Now, according to the deal, you need to stop doing the carbon emissions. And what were we going to do if those nations just went, no, fuck you? But according to the deal, yeah, the deal doesn't matter. You gave us all the power. Fuck you. We ain't going to listen to you. What were we going to do then? What were we going to do then? Because just, it's stuff you have to think about. And the climate change hysteria, you have to look at the dark underbelly. Because a lot of these policies these people are making, it's Trojan horses. You know, it's like, yes, this is to help fight the climate, but at the same time, we're also going to do wealth distribution and higher taxes on everything. Because, you know, boogeyman in the closet. And yes, they laugh like that. Listen, folks, climate change is real, I do believe that. But it's not in the format that the left is talking about. In fact, if they want to do real climate change, what are they going to do about the human population? Because the reality is, when we breathe in oxygen, which is a cooling agent. But when we breathe out, we breathe in carbon dioxide, CO2, which is a warming agent. If we cut down all the carbon emissions, and if the CO2 levels are still rising, which the left is absolutely complaining about, I'm sorry. My phone was doing something weird, and that's why I was looking at it weird. I was like, what the hell's going on? Anyway, we breathe out carbon dioxide. So if we cut all the carbon emissions down to zero, but yet the carbon emission or CO2 level is still rising, how long are they going to start coming out and saying, well, we need to worry about population control now because humans are breathing carbon dioxide, it's warming the planet? I mean, it's going to be like a bad sci-fi movie, you know, where it's just like, you can't live past a certain age, otherwise you're going to die because you're no longer useful to society. This is stuff we have to think about. The last note I will leave you with is one of my NCOs was actually talking about this, and I'm going to do a little bit more looking into this, but he was talking about, he noticed that ever since America got out of the the freaking Paris Climate Accord and a few other deals with Europe, a lot of their healthcare systems and such seem to start collapsing. And in fact, Finland's, was it Finland? I'll put a link in the description of the article I found. But their government and healthcare system seem to collapse as well. And he believed it's because we're no longer funding their healthcare system. So that's just a little food for thought. Once again, I apologize about that long pause. I said my phone did something really weird. I wasn't sure if it was recording or not, but just a little fruit for thought, you know? Look, this climate change, it's all hysteria. It's all bullshit. They know for a fact it's bullshit. The dark underbelly it's more about more control. More control of the population, more control of the people, more control of your money. Because the left is convinced that they can run our lives better than we can. Just think about it, folks. Alright, guys, thanks for tuning in.